Today, we're going to talk about enhancing your intuition for better business results. I am your host, Lia Dunlap, and you are listening to the Oracle on Purpose podcast, where we help intentional leaders clarify their purpose and next steps to create a work and life of significance. So, what is your intuition? Intuition bridges the gap between the conscious and unconscious mind. Some call it the sixth sense. Now, they note that it allows us to tap into the heightened state of awareness connected to universal source, which can provide information, direction, and affirmation of our decisions. It's kind of like a silent alarm. It triggers when we need to pay attention or avoid danger. Now, some people ask me, Leah, what's the difference between the oracle guidance, and intuition? For me, it has always, I've always had the oracle with me since I was a child. So for me, really, it never felt separate or different. It's just part of what I did. And I actually, for a long time, thought everyone had an oracle on their shoulder. So when people ask me that question, I have to say the best way that I can describe it is to explain that, to me, the guidance I receive from the oracle is provided to me on behalf of someone else. And the intuition that I feel is for me. It's intuitive guidance for me personally. So that might look, for example, like having an awareness that I need to call someone, or that I might have forgotten my keys when I was walking out the door. Now, sometimes that works in conjunction with a message from the oracle, right? So sometimes I'll get the intuition that I need to hold on for a second and think before I walk out the door. And then what happens is the oracle delivers a message about somewhere I'm going or someone I'm going to see. And so because that's how I've lived my whole life, it feels very symbiotic, right? Like they're working together. Now, the beauty of using this tool, which in intuition is, as a sense, it's part of your tools as a human being to get through the world. The beauty of using that in business is that we can really help ourselves engage, right? Connect with others on a much deeper level and make transactions, agreements, decisions in a much more confident and engaged way. Now, what would it look like if you didn't? Like, what are some of the risks of not really listening or tapping into your intuition? Because I think that's, some people push it aside. They just they want to know, they want to think, they want to use their head, right? They want to be very logical in business. And so what's the problem with that? So when we fail to listen to our intuition in life, we can take a wrong turn, right? Something could tell us to turn left and we go right. We can overlook an important call because we turn our phone off when something tells us we should leave it on. Or we can even miss a romantic connection. And that could look like someone glancing at you across the room. And even though your gut is telling you should move across the room and engage, you don't. So that's what it can look like from the personal side. And in business, we can find ourselves needlessly struggling to move forward on a project or to engage a client, to really make that connection that will allow us to really move their business forward if we're a business coach, for example. Or we can also fail to land an opportunity with someone because we're not paying attention to our own gut, our own intuition. Or the other way that can kind of go sour if you're not paying attention to your intuition and you're not really tapping into it is that you can miss signs that the client is not a good fit, right? And some of you probably out there watching this have had that experience where something while you were just engaging with someone, you're on the phone, having the call about how you're going to work together or what you're going to be working on or the project you're going to be working on. And you might feel like little warning bells are going off. Some people will say I just knew there was just something about the conversation or something about something they said that didn't feel right? It didn't land for you. And you pushed it aside. Maybe you pushed it aside because it was a giant, benefit to you financially. And it was like, well, this would be a huge boon for my business. But something underneath was kind of waving you off. And when that happens and we don't pay attention to our intuition, what that can look like in the end result is that we spend a lot more effort and energy, and the interaction with that person is stymied by it. We are not getting the best information or, intention from them, and we're not giving our best because there's something that's not aligned. And that goes back to like the gut instinct of something wasn't a fit. So when we think about it from the other side, like what are the benefits, conversely, if we proactively start to tap into our own intuition, or if we work with someone like myself, you work with a channel or you work with a guide or you work with someone who has an intuitive gift or a direct link to channeling on a higher plane, then you are tapping into that universal source of knowledge that the sixth sense is already tapping into. So what that can look like, which is really beautiful, is that you are moving through your process of creating something with someone. So as a business person, whether that's a product or a service, you are listening on all levels to the needs of the person that you're working with or the audience that you're sharing with. And by doing that, if you bring forward from your intuition what you are meant to deliver, then they get what they were looking for. And you get to deliver what you're meant to deliver. So you can do this a couple of different ways. If you've never, tapped into this side of yourself, if you find yourself being one of those people who are like, I want just the facts, the hard facts. And so you struggle to really tap in and listen, then the first step, if you really want to enhance your intuition and use it so that it can actually benefit your business, is to really sit down and practice listening. Listen when you're having conversations with new clients, when you're having conversations with coworkers, when you're having conversations with new partners that you're partnering up with. Listen to not only what you're seeing and hearing from them, but what you're feeling about what you're hearing and seeing from them. And so it can look like, if you're taking notes, what I would recommend is to either put like a little side box on your notepad, and when any kind of feeling comes up about what they're saying or how the project's moving forward, just write the feeling. Like, I feel like we could do something different, or I get the sense. Like, these are the things you'll probably start hearing in your head. It's like, I get the sense that something isn't sitting well with you. The other piece is, that's the second piece, right? You can start to speak that to other people. And because you're doing that, they feel heard on a totally different level. And because they feel heard, right, and seen on a totally different level, then the rapport you have in business is deepened. And so the trust, which is very important in any kind of business agreement or situation, becomes more easily found and kept. And then you're working together. You're working like as a team, because you're starting to hear and listen to that undertone, the undercurrent, if you will, the message that's being sent on a vibrational level between you. And it doesn't always mean that you're going, like I said, it doesn't always mean that you're going to be a fit. So even if you find yourself in that place, this ability to really enhance and listen to our intuition still can benefit both parties. And for me, that's the point, right? We're here to help everyone win. So if it's not fitting, and even if the other person isn't recognizing, if they're not intuitive or they're not tapped into their own intuition, they may not recognize it. So you could do yourself and them a favor by calling out what you sense, even if you don't understand it fully. So if you can say, for example, I get the feeling that we're not really on the same page, or that there's something off about this for you, right? It's giving them an out without having to like divulge everything, first of all, but also just opens the conversation on a new level. And then you can go back to listening. Like, you can go back to like verbally listening to them and saying like, tell me more about what your thoughts are about this. And as they're speaking to you, again, for you, if you're ready to really enhance your intuition, that's the moment when you don't just listen to respond. You listen to what they're saying and you listen to what your gut is telling you, right? You do both. And as you're doing both, then you're kind of creating a whole picture, a better informed view of what's really transpiring. And, the good news is anyone can enhance their intuition. It really is pretty simple. Like I started out by saying, first, of course, it is you have to start listening. If you really want to enhance it, you have to start listening for it. So you can practice with this. You can start to become more aware. Part of this could be, sometimes there's meditation, which takes us into a quietness and stillness where we're less distracted, then we can hear those voices. Other times, journaling is another great way to do that. So you can journal on a page and free write what you're feeling, what your senses are telling you. And that could really be like, if you wanted to do, for example, 5 minutes of free writing for a week, every day. And literally just let the writing come from inside of you. And that might sound a little more tricky than it is, but really if you just trust, okay, that's the next piece. You really have to trust to really enhance your intuition and really find a process for yourself that's authentic to who you are. You have to start learning to trust that voice, to believe it, even though you may not see the direct results right away. There are often times in my life when I joke about having like a deja vu. Many of us know what deja vu is. I joke about having deja vu, and really it's a premonition I had previously that I'm watching unfold in front of me, right? So if you've ever been in a situation where you were thinking something was going to happen, let's say, for example, you were thinking about going back to business, that you were thinking about this one client coming in and that would be really great to work with them in a certain way. And then all of a sudden, days later go by, and from a different perspective, like not what you originally saw in your mind, for example, but suddenly you look down and you watch almost like in slow motion, you watch things falling into place and you recognize that the thing you had thought was going to take place was taking place right there in front of you. So it doesn't always come like directly the same way, but the evidence appears to match that inclination, that intuitive insight that you had. So these are some of the tools that I use personally, and I recommend mostly for the practice piece, because I think when we're just starting out to kind of really tap into our intuition or really wanting to focus, it helps to have some tools that give us some feedback, right? So some of the tools that many people are familiar with are oracle cards or oracle decks. And there's a myriad of those. I personally recommend some cards that are done from the Mary Magdalene cards, which are beautiful. But regardless, you can, again, use your intuition to find out which of the cards really speaks to you, whether that's the look of the card, the descriptions of the individual cards. And those are cards that you pull, and they are more like divining cards. You pull them, they give you some sort of insight. You can practice like asking a question, pulling a card. Same thing, for example, with some tools like pendulums. Pendulums are another good example of that. Pendulums are tools that are used to divine answers. And one of the things I will say about pendulums that I like to remind people of is, your pendulum will speak to you. Like when you're going out to find a pendulum, really just play with it. Listen. Again, this is even in the practice of doing it, it becomes practice to listen. I was in the south of France at the Mary Magdalene Caves, by the way, and I was intent on buying a new pendulum. I had given mine as a gift to someone else who was starting on this journey of really tapping into their intuition. And so I decided I was going to buy one for myself. And I went to this shop, and there were several different shops there that had pendulums of different kinds, crystals, and like just tons of different types and styles, metal and gold and crystals and whatnot, wooden ones, which are beautiful. And I really, really wanted one particular one that was like this beautiful pewtery metal looking one. And I picked it up, and it just hung there, didn't move at all. So a pendulum is usually on a chain, and it comes to a point. And like I said, it can be made of different things. So this one was metal, and I picked it up and nothing happened. And I really, really wanted it. And so I kept trying different ones. And then I picked one up that was pretty simple, but it was beautiful crystal with some citrine beads in the center of this little chamber on this little silver chain. And it was pretty nondescript as a pendulum. The other ones were very ornate and fancy and, spun wood and all these things. And I picked it up. And the second I picked it up, it started swinging like wildly. It was as if it was happy that I had picked it up. And I knew right away that was my pendulum. So if you do decide to do pendulum work, that's like, we could do a whole nother section about this. Maybe we will someday. But the point is that you will know, trust me, if it's your pendulum. Okay. So it will speak to you. And in that practice of testing which pendulum was right for me, that's another good way to start practicing, like enhancing your intuition, listening to what the vibration is bringing back to you, right? So pendulums are another tool. Idiomotor finger signals are used by Milton Erickson. And many of you might have heard of Ericksonian coaching. And Milton Erickson was a hypnotherapist, and he used a technique where, I'm going to put my hand up here just so you can see, where if you were to move your finger, it would be a way to communicate from the subconscious mind an answer to a question. And it allowed you to bypass the conscious mind and receive simple yes, no, and unclear answers from your subconscious mind. It's a wonderful tool in hypnotherapy because when we have someone in a subconscious state and they're relaxed in a trance state, it allows them to communicate without verbalizing. And so he was kind of the person who spearheaded that finger signals. So that's another tool that you can use. Like, these are great. What's great about these tools, of course, the oracle cards might be a little more tricky, but with all of these, the best thing is that these techniques, you can take them with you. You can literally, obviously, take your hands where you go. Pendulums are usually small enough to fit in a pocket or a purse. And even cards, I think if you have a deck of cards and you're going somewhere, you can keep your cards with you too, and be able to access that information. But the key is to clear your mind, right? And allow that intuition to bubble up from within your core. We're not trying to force it into view. We're not trying to manipulate it. It's really a process of listening and following through, and listening and being aware, right? So listening to a message and looking for that to appear. And once you become skilled, you could recognize your inner voice and hear it clearly anywhere. So at first it's great when you're give yourself some privacy, some quiet time, and practice. And as you build that muscle, then you can actually, in the middle of a busy airport, on a bus, in a car, wherever you are, you can tap in. You're not going to have to leave yourself, which I think sometimes people think that there's this separation. Instead, it really is more about internal listening and tapping in. So whatever way you choose to practice, I hope that you take the time to recognize your own intuition, listen to the voice that you're hearing, and acknowledge that there is something in that's helping you to make better choices, more aligned choices for yourself and your business, so that you can prosper to the best of your abilities using all of your abilities. Thanks for watching this video. If you haven't yet, subscribe and ring the bell. And if you want to see more videos like this, click right here.